Okay, we're still working in section 5.2 in the conics, and we had in our first tutorial in the 5.2 parabola area section of our course, all we did was we kind of looked through and looked at the characteristics of a parabola and how they looked and how the equation looked in standard form. So now what we're going to do is look at an example. Finding the characteristics of all of this parabola here. So first of all, because it's an x equaling parabola, we know that this is a horizontal parabola. So we can say it's horizontal. And because there's a negative sign in front here, and that would lead us to get a negative p, we know that it's going to open to the left. Then we look at these h and k values to figure out what the vertex would be. So the vertex here is going to be hk. And you got to be careful with the parabola because one of those terms is the opposite of what it is in brackets because of the square, and the other one is just what it's going to be normally. So it's going to be -1 there for the h because it's what the, oh, sorry, this should be a y here. Almost blew that one. We can't have two x's in that equation. So then my h is actually going to be the -3 here because this 1 is with the y. So my h is going to be -3. Okay? And then I have to look, this y squared term here, plus 1, that's going to have the opposite sign. So it's going to be -1 for the y point of the vertex. So then the vertex is going to be -3 and -1. Good thing I caught that. Okay, so now we have the vertex, we have a horizontal parabola opening left. So we should calculate the p-value. By calculating the p-value, that's going to allow us to find out what the vertex, what the focus point is and what the directx point is, or line is. So we're going to just move this up a little bit. And then we will sketch the parabola as we're doing this. So here we have parabola opening to the left. There's my vertex. -3, -1. So my axis of symmetry is going to be here. It's going to be the y line, right? That's a y line because it's y equaling something. So we always know that the axis of symmetry is going to be that y point. In this case, it's going to be -1. So y equals -1 is the axis of symmetry. Okay, and there it is. We know the vertex point. Now the focal point is here, and the directx will be over here somewhere. And that, because that's going to be a vertical line like that, that's going to be x equals something for our directx, but we don't know what it is yet. Now we know that this distance is p. So by calculating the p-value, we'll be able to find out what this point is by moving, or by subtracting from, or adding to, depending on which way we're going, to find each of these. And this is also p distance here to the directx. So what we're going to do then is calculate p. So how we calculate p is we look at what's in front here. Okay, we know that this value in the general, or in the standard form of the parabola is 1/4p. So we know 1/16 negative is equal to 1/4p. And then we just cross multiply to calculate p. So -4p is equal to 16. So p is equal to 4. Okay, so that means p is equal to 4 is our distance of p. So now we think to ourselves, well, if I'm moving backwards here, which point am I moving back on? I'm actually moving along the x-axis backwards here, or if I move forward. So if I move back 1, 2, 3, 4, distance of 4 here, this focus point is going to be 4 back of this -3. So that would be -7. And it's going to be -1 again for the y point. So that's our focus point. And to get the directx, we would have to jump ahead 4 spots to get the line that will be in that spot there, x equaling something. So what's that x equaling what? Well, what's -3 and 4 ahead? X equaling 1. So that is our directx of the parabola. Stuffed it in on the side there, sorry about that. So now we've figured out pretty much all we need to know. Let's just double check, make sure we kind of went through everything. Well, we've got the focus point. What we did first was we took the equation, we found out what kind of parabola it was by looking at what it was equal to. It's horizontal. We looked at the sign to see that it was opening to the left. We then found the vertex point by looking at these two numbers, h and k, this one being k here, and this one being h here, remembering that this has to have the opposite sign because it's in the brackets there. Then we kind of sketched our parabola out. We figured out what P was, and then we went from the vertex point back here in this case to find the focus point, and ahead in this case to find the directx. And the only other thing I guess we could find is the length of the lattice rectum. Remember the length of the lattice rectum? It's got 2p going this way and 2p going this way. So 4p, so the lattice rectum is 16, which makes sense because that's what that is. So the lattice rectum is actually 16 long. And that would be how you go about finding all the information or all the characteristics of a parabola given it you started out in this here standard form. Now, in the next example that I'm going to do here, and I think I'm going to do it in the next tutorial, what happens when you start out in this form or in the general form? And we'll look at that in the next tutorial.